And that's when I realized I had something in my teeth.
Oh, you gotta hate that. Yeah. Oh, hey everybody. We're live. Yeah. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of the UnDisrupted Podcast. The longest running podcast with hosts Carl and Adam, and the number one podcast in education with hosts Carl and Adam.
For now.
Yeah, for now, until that other Carl and Adam education podcast comes along and just knocks us off, and then we're in deep trouble. But we're coming for them first. So, Adam, interesting opening debate today before we invite up our guest. You know,
right, what you got for me?
We both had jobs or CIO, CTO type level jobs at some point in our life. And if you had a theme song, this is different than a walk-up song. This is like a theme song. It's like, this is like whenever I go to work, this is kind of the thing in my head. This is like the theme of this job. What would be your theme song as a CTO, CIO type person?
Ooh, you know what? This is one of those things where it depends on the time of the year that we're talking. Because there's different theme songs. Like, you know, there's a total song for the summer where you're trying to get things up and running, and even right before school starts. Right now, we're in that window right before spring break where we're getting ready for testing and all that stuff. So it's like, you know, what song's gonna run? And the reason why I'm saying all this stuff is because I'm still trying to think of the song.
I've got two now, just since you've been talking. So you ready? I can throw my two at you.
What you got?
All right. So you're right. I was thinking themes, and that's funny because I was thinking times of year are different. Like when I go to the board and say something, I've got Backstreet Boys. I want it that way. I want it that way. But then when like teachers get back from conferences, it's like Wannabe from Spice Girls. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Well, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. And then they give you all the lists of all the apps and things that they want you to download and upload. So there's kind of two versions of what you were just talking about, how it's seasonal, but those are a couple in my head. Now I've given you enough time to stall. What you got?
Yeah. You know what? And here's one of those things, because I've always been very protective of my team, you know, and so this time of the year, getting ready into testing, sometimes the tech department would get, you know, inundated from testing coordinators and teachers, you know, why is this going slow? And it's like, it's not us, it's somebody else. So my thing is, you know, since we're a team, we gotta knuckle up and we gotta be together. I'll say Kendrick Lamar's, you know, squabble up, you know.
Squabble up. Okay. See, I thought you were
we're fighting. We're like, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight the good fight. We're gonna squabble up, but you know, we got each other's back, so we got to be ready right now.
Yeah, I thought you were going with Sean Paul's "It Wasn't Me" for a minute. It wasn't me, because you're like, we always blame each other. It wasn't me. Da, 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 da. Did you download that virus? It wasn't me.
You know, well, somebody that we can't blame for this, but I know has a great song, because we kept them in the back long enough to come up with something. We're bringing the one, the only Chris Lockhart to the stage as our guest this week.
CIO from Columbus City Schools in the great state of Ohio. Chris, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. And that is a great question. And so I'm going to cheat just like Carl did, because he picked two. So I'm going to go with two. One is a double cheat, and you guys will know why. The theme song, Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh, so he's got a TV show too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the one that says you can't use those extensions. You can't use that site. You can't install software. So Everybody Hates Chris. But then the other one I thought of was 99 Problems.
Oh.
Yes.
And a VLAN ain't one. Yeah.
As I tell my team, we are in the trouble business, and business is good.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah, so thank you all for having me.
Yeah, it's hard to top that. It's funny. I used to always hear, I had a friend who was in the business office. We called it purgatory, because we would send POs down there and they would never come back. But he used to tell me that he had a lot of opportunities today. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, oh, whenever there's trouble, we call it opportunities. And he would see me kind of frustrated, and he'd go, you've had a lot of opportunities today, haven't you? I was like, yes, I have.
I'm going to steal that one too.
That's good. Yep.
So Chris, you've had a recent change in scenery. You know, I guess from the last time I saw you, we were hanging out. So tell everybody, tell our listeners, where are you at right now? What's going on?
Sure. Within the last year, I've had the opportunity to change positions. I was at Princeton City Schools down in Southwest Ohio, doing great work there. And this opportunity came up back in Central Ohio for the Columbus City Schools. And I am now their new Chief Information Officer for Columbus City Schools, which also happens to be the largest school district in the state of Ohio. So no pressure, no pressure
yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
How many students?
47,000.
Woo!
See, I think
47,000 students, 9,000 staff members, and 113 building locations.
See, I wasn't going to say anything, but Chris, I noticed in the last year since I've seen you, your hair is a lot more gray. But at least you've still got some because mine's disappearing, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm either losing hair or gaining forehead. I don't know which one.
See, here's my thing, Chris. The forehead growth is because of the wisdom. See, as we get older, our intelligence goes through the frontal lobe, and due to it expanding in the frontal lobe, it causes the rear to move to the to move backwards. I totally made that up on the fly, and I'm totally sticking to that.
There you go.
Yes, because 87.5% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
You can look
Exactly.
that up right now. Give us for our listeners out there. There's some folks that may be making some sort of transitions like yours, where you go from a smaller district to a large one. What's your mindset when you go into a job like that? Because knowing that you're going into the largest district, especially in the state, what are you thinking? Like, what are some things you're thinking? Okay, I got to change this up, or what was kind of your thinking as you go into that job?
Sure, there's a lot that goes on. Especially going from previous school district 6,000 students to 47. So first of all, there's that intimidation factor, to be quite frank. Am I really up to this role in this job? And then making the transition, getting here and realizing that the first thing that I need to do is get out of this office and go out and meet the persons that I'll be interacting with. It's a unique situation here where we have a data center. So I'm surrounded by techs. There's no kids in this building. It's just my tech team. So I have to spend a lot of time getting out of here and out in the district to make sure that I'm interfacing with my new team here, because we are so spread out in such a geographical area. So I think that's the first part, is making those people connections, even for a technician job, making that people connection. Because quite frankly, the tech work is being done by the really smart people. My job is to make sure that I point us in the direction that we're being of the best benefit for the school district.
Right.
And so I think for anybody making the change from a smaller to a larger, I think you have to kind of make that mind expansion that I'm no longer responsible for technology. I'm responsible for leadership
and vision. Yeah, that's a great point, because you can't be the one that's always running around just fixing smart boards and projectors and printers. Now it's like you got to have that mindset. And I love that you also get out of the office and make intention with that, because it is really easy to kind of get fallen into the trap of taking meetings and just being in the office all the time and forgetting kind of the mission, especially in education, of the little ones out there. That's the reason why we're doing all this, the kids. So I love that you still get out there.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I did, like at the other districts, sometimes I could actually go out and fix stuff. I'd actually go out and tinker. I can't do that here. I'm not allowed to.
It's the suit. It's the suit. I'm telling you. Yeah,
that's what it is.
But you kind of touched on this briefly, and I'm going to throw this to you. Going from a smaller district to where you are now. And I know we have some newer CTOs who are also CIOs who are listening to the podcast as well. And one of the things that I talked about with some of them in a coaching academy was sometimes dealing with the imposter syndrome, that you feel like, when you go in this role in a larger scale, it may be too big for you, or like, why am I here, or these kind of things. So what advice, if you have any, for those folks who are maybe stepping into a role, they may be going from a one-man show to 6,000. For them, 6,000 is a big district, or going on that 40,000 student district, and they feel they're not there yet, or this isn't their time, but they're already there. So what advice could you give those tech directors or CIOs, CTOs that are going through this process?
Sure, I'll go way back and pull an old quote from a very long time ago: "To thine own self be true." William Shakespeare. When you're in the interview process, bring the real you to the interview process. Interviews, if you get guidance online about how to, go through them, they say the perfect things to say and perfect questions to ask and how to react. I would argue that if you're going to pursue a much bigger role, go to those interviews bringing your full self. And I think that's how you put that first barrier in place, that you don't have to worry about imposter syndrome, because they will accept you for who you are, or they will reject you for who you are. Now, the rejection is difficult, but what that means is that maybe there are some things that you still need to work on, and some muscles that you still need to build to be ready for that. If you've already gotten there, if you faked it till you make it, I think that works.
Sure.
Then I would then take that time to say, okay, what is it about me or my performance that I don't feel like I belong here, and start to focus on those. If you feel like you're not as organized as you need to be for that new role, work on organizational skills, or have somebody in your department help you organize. If you don't feel like
Mhm.
you have technical prowess, hire people to do that work. And I think, as you make this change, as you see these things, there's ways to mitigate that imposter syndrome. But like I said, to thine own self be true. You have to look at you and decide who you are and what you are and what you need to do to be ready for that new role.
I'm so glad you said that. I actually had this is harkening back a few years for myself, but there's a school district here, Austin, which is huge. And I was one of the finalists. This is years ago. And I remember I walked into the office. It was the finalist for the CTO job. And it was a big, big, big job for me. I'm going from 8,000 to 88,000. So similar to you, I'm thinking. And as I walk into that job, my wife says something to me. She's like, "You aren't going to wear a tie?" And I said, "I don't wear ties. I mean, I wear a t-shirt and I wear a jacket. I mean, that's just my look, and jeans and tennis shoes." And she's like, "What if they don't hire you?" And I was like, "If they don't hire me because I'm not wearing a tie, then it wasn't meant to be." And I was myself. And, short story, I didn't get hired. So I got rejected. So maybe if I really wanted the job, I would have worn a tie. But
The guy that got it
again,
had a tie. I'm just saying.
they did have a tie. But I told them they wanted a person that would manage behind the scenes, the wires and the boxes. And I said, "I am not your person if that's what you want. I'm a forward facing person. I'm a vision person," kind of like what you're saying, Chris. I want to go out there and talk to people. I want to go out and interface with the community. I get passionate out of that. If you don't want that, then I'm definitely not the person for this job. And turns out that was the case, but it was good. In some ways, I'm like, I could have taken it and faked it, but it would have been, it's hard. You can only, your true self comes out eventually. You can't keep putting on a face unless you're Batman. But even then, he takes breaks. I don't know.
Maybe.
Plus, he has a whole lot of money for therapy also.
That's true. Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's true. When you don't get the job, it doesn't matter as much because he has billions. But depending on what he invested in.
I'll lay on my billions. How about that?
Yeah.
But that's so true though. When you get these roles, and it's the mentality of understanding that you do not have to know all aspects of the job in going into that role. If you are a curriculum person going into a CIO, CTO job, of course you have to have some knowledge to know what you're getting into, but you don't have to know how to diagram your entire network on the first day. That's some things that you can possibly learn. Just like if you're a tech person going into that CTO role, you may not understand all the curricular and pedagogy, but it doesn't mean you stop learning. You still learn. You're still going to grow in that capacity as you get those jobs. So that's always when we look at it, to kind of get over that. You're going to grow. You're going to get better because no one knows the job on day one that I've seen. If someone knows the job perfectly on day one, then you shot too low. You should shoot a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. And even myself in this role, I have consultants that I work with. So it's, through the district, some services that they pay for, because I've not done this at this scale, and it would be foolish of me to, pretend like I know it. So when some of those challenges come up, data governance right now is one of the big projects we're working on. I've never done it at this scale. So I have some people that I've reached out to and paying for their services to help me accomplish that goal, because my job is not to necessarily do it, but my job is to make sure that it gets done.
And then when it gets done, it's also communicating that to the masses, right? And now you've just said you've just gone to a larger scale. How do you, when you have a plan or a strategic vision, I mean, and again, you've only been in this role for a little while, but how do you communicate that to everybody and make sure that all those schools are aligned? Because we all know every school's got a little bit of difference when it comes to certain things, but there's some areas like data governance where you don't want to have, a lot of variability, because that opens you up to risk, right? So how do you communicate that without losing your mind?
Sure. You have to work with your team. I have a great team of other chiefs that I work with, and I communicate with them early and often. So first, I make sure that the other leadership is bought in. So I'm not out there on an island, with some crazy new idea of what I'm pushing. I'm talking to them and saying, okay, we need to get this under control. How have we dealt this in the past in this district? We haven't. Okay, it's just like most schools. Okay, what's the process to move things forward? Do I go straight to the superintendent? Do we talk amongst each other? Do we form committees? So just doing that kind of work, again, being new, I don't even know how this thing works yet. So I'm asking a bunch of questions.
That's good. Yeah.
So that I can try to get to what the answer needs to be. But I think you said is that communication, I think, is the most important part of a CIO's role. You're the chief information officer. Now, of course, that works if you're the CTO, then you got to just kind of flip it. But we'll stay with the CIO. My job is to communicate. My job is to make sure that what we're doing inside the department is communicated outside the department, the good and the bad, and to make sure that I'm communicating what they call it cascading to my team what the vision is for the district and making sure that we're in alignment with that. So I'm really just kind of a catalyst, like a catalytic converter. I sit in the middle and make sure that exchange continues to happen. One thing I wrote down was
Post-it note. Is that your password?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good news deposit.
Good news
password.
Yeah, no, that's on the bottom of my keyboard.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but good news deposits. One of the worst things you can do as any tech leader of any school of any size is not communicate the good news and the positive things that you're doing. As I joked earlier, we're in the trouble business and business is good. The only reason we have jobs is because technology doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. If it did, we would have to find something else to do with our times. But because it's going to fail at some point, then that's when people have those consternations. That's when people have those challenges and those moments of grief, and they want to reach out to us. And if we've not formed a relationship of good news with them, then the only time they think of us is when things break. And so we're always seen in a negative light and never seen in a positive light. So we have to make good news deposits early and often.
Well, speaking of making that good news and also the bad news, you said this earlier about your song "Everybody Hates Chris," and hopefully that's not the case. But with this question, we always have this role as tech leaders where we have to open things up or keep them closed. It's that balancing act of safety, privacy, but access. So where do you land on that spectrum, and how do you balance that? And then with that, being able to communicate, hey, we're blocking this resource that the teachers may think is a really great resource, but it's red X's on all these security, data privacy areas. So that's why we're not using it. So how do you kind of do that, but then make people don't really hate Chris based on how you're trying to protect the internet and protect their data?
Sure. It's tough. And there are people that still truly believe that I just enjoy blocking things and not letting them have any fun. But one of the things that our state legislature in Ohio has actually done has a new bill, SB 29, that now requires every school district to have a written contract with service providers. So if they have any type of student data, we have to have a written agreement with them, not just that biggest lie told every day in America. I've read all the terms and conditions. I agree. Yeah. So we have to actually have a written agreement. They've also put some data governance in there also about what the companies are and are not allowed to do with that data. So it actually follows very well along with the SPDA, I believe it is. A lot of that language is now included in the bill. Now, when they first wrote it, it was pretty bad. So they had to go back and fix it. But it actually has given me a lot more leverage to say, it's the law. Yeah. Until this is vetted, we can't use it. Now, the other thing is coming to a larger district, we actually have a teaching and learning division also. And they sit over top of curriculum. So they are the ones that make the decisions about usability. So I don't have to say, I don't think that teachers should be using this particular software. they came from that vein. They live in that vein. They live in curriculum. So they're the ones that make the first vetting of the system or the software to say, yes, this fits our goals or this does not. Then it gets passed to me, and I just have to do the simple, it's compliant or it's non-compliant. So I don't get yelled at as much here as I used to with those two things in place now. But I would say for anybody that has to do that currently in their role, you're not in Ohio, you don't have that law to back you up. I used to use the Jerry Maguire speech. Help me, help you. Help me, help. Yeah. And I would say, you don't want to be the person that exposes the school district to liability.
Yep.
You don't want to be the person that creates this data leak of student information because you didn't take the time to vet the software. So I think for those that have to carry that duality also, just tell them, I'm doing this to protect you and to protect the district. And then also create some pathways for them to play, to test things out, create a pathway where they can submit things and say, hey, I was looking at this, could you put it through some type of process, create a process where you vet some of these things to give those teachers voice, because they're the ones that are literally on our front lines. They're the ones that are in the classroom with the kids. They're usually the ones that are finding, I think you mentioned it earlier, these great things when they come back from these conferences. Yeah. They're like, I got 3 new AI programs.
There we go.
Same time. Yeah. And I think we have to do that so that they have some agency in what they're using in their classrooms, while at the same time we have to then say, okay, let me take a look at it. We'll vet it. We'll send it through the process. If it's a go, it's a go.
And then I thought you were going to go with the other part of that Jerry Maguire speech, which is when they also come back and ask you, I'm always like, show me the money. Show me the money, because I can't pay for all of it. You want this tool?
Show me the money. It's not free.
Who's coming with me?
Like,
okay.
But they say it's free. It's not.
It's not. It isn't.
And the ones that are free are the ones that will not sign the data protection agreement.
Yep, for very good reason.
For the product.
It's interesting too, because and I don't know. Give us a lay of the land there in Columbus when it comes to. I know digital divide. We've talked about for over a decade in terms of devices, or maybe it's connectivity, or maybe it's something more. Where do you see there? I mean, there's different kinds of divides, and now maybe AI is going to have its own kind of divide because some people use it, some people don't. Or
there you go. You said it.
The AI divide. We have their ding. Well, Chris said it AI before I did, so technically we try to go as long as we can throughout the show.
We have to.
We have drink. I don't have anything with me. Oh, brats. Oh wait, I have this. There we go. That's old coffee. No, never good. So what do you think? What's your lay of the land like right now? This is March of 25 in Columbus, Ohio. What do you feel like the digital divide? Is parts of it over? Or are there still parts that we're kind of struggling with?
How long is this show?
Yeah. You have 2 minutes. 2 minutes to respond. How about that? I'll put you on a timer.
It's interesting. One of the things that's happening post-COVID, COVID, everybody went one-to-one, handed out Chromebooks, handed out
ESSER funds,
whatever it took to get people online. A few years after COVID, lots of schools are pulling those devices back in just because we can't afford the loss. Students leave the school district. We don't get the devices back. They get broken, just a lot of things that happen. And for us as a large urban school district, it becomes unsustainable. As our budgets are being cut, Ohio is one of the states that's going with school vouchers. So they're literally taking from public education for private in a way that, currently actually going to hurt us really bad next year. We're going to lose about $15 million next year.
Wow.
So with those types of things happening, we just don't have the resources to just give those devices out the way that we did during COVID. So while the divide had shrunk, it's now starting to widen again because we don't have the financial support to be that bridge over that divide. So K through 8, the devices are back in school. High school, we still let them take the Chromebooks home. We have now a much smaller number of loaner MiFis now that the ECF is over. We don't have that funding in the way it was before. And we're even reassessing our bus Wi-Fi at this point. Even though it's e-ratable now, and even though it's a lot more affordable, there's still those opportunity costs of maintaining it and keeping up with it. And since we aren't giving the students the devices to ride home on the bus anymore, the usage has just dropped, except for, kids trying to get on Facebook and, TikTok.
Yeah.
So I think what was closing is now opening back up. And I'm not smart enough to know what that answer is, but I know we have some really smart people here in Columbus that are working on that issue. Was at a roundtable last week, and they're working with some folks in Washington, D.C. to try to close some of that digital divide as far as connectivity, at least.
Okay.
And then, of course, the next question is, devices. Once we get the connectivity there, and what do you get online with? How do you get access? So it's a BHAG. It's a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yes, I love the BHAGs.
Yeah. And one of the things with Future Ready, we always want to make sure our listeners are aware of is we want you to be active politically. This is not a Democrat Republican, because we are a nonpartisan organization. We want you to understand what's happening in your state level and at the federal level, so you can advocate whichever way you feel. We want to make sure your voice are heard, because it's we the people. So we want to make sure that our voices are heard. If we feel as though this technology thing is that important for our students, make sure we're advocating for that, because our elected officials do listen to the people who put them in those positions. So we have to ensure that we're saying the right things to get the resources that we need, for our students. Now, I talked about the electoral process. Now we're going to talk about magic. And I don't mean Magic Johnson.
Wow.
There you go.
Pull out a magic wand just like that.
Yes. So speaking of magic wand, if you could pull out like a magic wand and solve any edtech K-12 issue, there's some other things, but we're not going to get into that. We're trying to stay on air this whole season. What would it be if you could just take out your magic edtech wand and resolve an edtech issue? It doesn't have to be specific to your district. It could be that other district next door that everybody talks about. It could be that one. But what is something in edtech you would fix with your magic wand?
Wow. Okay. So I'm torn. I'm torn because of the hats that I wear. The easy answer would be to go right back to what we talked about and close that digital divide. Every student gets a device and every student gets connectivity. But since we just talked about that, I'm going to go the opposite direction. That we would have enough money and resources to have a true cybersecurity footprint to protect all school districts from bad actors.
Yeah.
It's been high on my radar, for the last couple of years, just the threat that's out there. And even right now, we talked about communicating. Right now, my communication to the district is not if, but when.
Yeah.
Not if we're going to be compromised, but when we're compromised, what will our response be? How will we react? Because it's just that bad. If they can get into the Treasury, they can get into all these other government entities that have lots of money and lots of people protecting it, then us poor school districts, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. We have two things. We have data, a whole lot of it, and I won't mention any of the breach companies by name, but we know we have some ed tech companies that have been breached. Mm-hmm. And we have cash. We have large deposits of cash because we're in a human business. We're in a people business. And so we have to pay those people. So we have large chunks of money that sit in accounts waiting for payroll. And the criminals have found ways to either get into that directly or to take us hostage and, basically make us pay ransom to get some of that stuff back. So.
Yeah, you're one of the biggest employers, I would imagine, in the city of Columbus as a school district. So you have that on top of the fact that public, I think it's K-12 and higher ed, if you combine the two, it's by far the number one most ransomware attacked industry out of all the other ones combined. Almost, it's like it's first and then second is a long ways off. because we just don't have the resources, like you said, Chris, protecting all of those. Government even struggles with it, and big companies. I won't name them on this podcast, but one just happened recently, a very large one. It was a big breach that affected a lot of people. And I think the other thing I saw was that EdWeek reported we have over 2,700 apps, edtech tools that districts are using and interacting with. Think about those as 2,700 different, vulnerabilities. I mean, that's enough. It's enough to keep you up at night. Enough to give you gray hair, that's for sure. But with all of that, we always like to ask our guests, speaking of staying up at night and getting yourself gray hair, how do you one thing we like to wrap up on the show with is as we're talking to other tech leaders out there, is how do you keep yourself in a state of undisrupted, in a state of being like just kind of balanced personally, because it's a job that has a lot of stress. You seem to take it on like really well. I mean, I love the comment, we're in the trouble business and business is good. So keeping things positive. What are your tricks to keep yourself undisrupted?
Sure. For me, my trick is that I understand the nature of the job. The nature of the job is to solve problems, period. So that means that when I'm at work, I'm dealing with problems all day long. So at the end of the day, I shut that off and I go home and spend time with my family, and I get to be husband, pawpaw, dad. And I keep those two separates. I'm fortunate to be at a level where I can. It wasn't always the case. There were many a times that I was, taking phone calls nights and weekends. But I still try to compartmentalize the difference between work and home. The other thing is I'm a happy warrior. So when people bring me problems, people bring me issues, people bring me complaints, I smile while I talk to them and we communicate. I say, let's try to find a solution. Now there's 3 possible solutions. Yes, we can do that. Maybe we could do that, and that's not going to happen. And sometimes no period has to be a full sentence, and you have to carry that and just say, no, we're not going to be able to do that. Let's talk about alternatives.
Yeah.
Yes. I think if people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And, it was one of the things I talked about, empathy, that we have to bring empathy to this job. We have to bring empathy to this job in this role, because a lot of times we're operating in a space in technology that nobody else understands. Not only do they not understand, they don't care. They don't want me to explain to them how artificial intelligence is a synapse of, connectivities that meet the human brain. They just want to know, can I use magic AI or not?
Yeah.
I'm tired of IEPs. So we have to have empathy with them, and also understand that we are in a rapidly changing space, time, and environment. And so we also have to have empathy for those that are not able to adjust to change management as easily as we do. We're in this space where things are always changing. So for us, we get excited. Ooh, something new, let's go. Other persons actually go through a grieving period when something changes too much. I don't want that. I know you said it's better for me, but I don't care. I like the way this worked, and I don't know why you're taking it away from me. So, we have to. Go ahead.
No, like definitely. I mean, people don't like change. They're going to resist it as much as they can.
Yeah. And we're in the change business. One of the things I'm doing with my staff is we're reading my cheese. Starting at the beginning, of some professional development, and just say, for those of you that have read it, the story. I won't go into it or spoil it, but it talks about these fable characters and how they deal with change. And so what I told them to do was look at it from the lens of which character are you, but don't stop there. I also want you to look at who in the district fits those other characters also, so that we're able to empathize with them and understand, why won't you just get up and follow me and I will show you where the cheese is.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, because the cheese was always here. Just bring it back.
That's thoughtful too, because I too a lot of people do the strength finders or do those other tests where there's like, I know what I'm about, but I like that you take it to that next level up, which is like, okay, now that you know and identify yourself, now go and identify others, and then also how to get them to move, which is that's harder than anything. You can throw any money you want to at tech. Change a culture and ideology, it's such a hard thing, and telling someone that they aren't teaching right is almost like telling a parent they aren't parenting right. It's a very emotional response. So kudos to you, Chris. Where can people find out more about you and the great work you're doing?
Sure. So I am at Columbus City Schools here in Columbus, Ohio, very near the Ohio State University.
Uh-oh.
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to get in touch with me now. Just Google me on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to connect. I've been meeting a lot of great folks out there in the tech space and getting a lot of knowledge and information from them, like the two fine gentlemen that are hosting this show. And I'm not just saying it because I'm on their show. They are really out there doing the work and spreading the gospel of edtech and supporting a lot of people who need a lot of help. So I really do appreciate the work that you all do. And I thank you for just giving me a few moments to come on and tell my story about what I'm doing here in the Midwest.
Thank you so much for that.
I love that. Needs to be a soundbite clip now. We need to just run that nonstop, that little Chris promo right there. There you go, right there. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
I need that on repeat on my dark days when I'm like, I'm not feeling like I'm doing something. I just hear Chris's voice in my head, man. I love that.
Yes.
Well, that sounds a little psychotic. Chris's voice.
That could be.
I'm scared of my voice. Yeah. So no.
It is very calming, though. It is.
It is. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and to our listeners out there, of course, be sure to check out Chris. Follow him on LinkedIn. Check out all the great work he's doing there at Columbus Public Schools, Columbus City Schools, excuse me, there in Ohio. And then, of course, give us a review. Give us a follow on the show if you guys are listening to this right now. Of course, we the algorithms hit. We're on the Spotify. We're on iTunes and all that stuff. So give us a review. Give us a shout out. We might even put it on a future show. This has been the UnDisrupted Podcast, brought to you by All for Ed. He's Adam, and you can follow him. Oh, that way. He's Adam, and you can follow him on all the socials at AskAdam3.
And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Hooker Tech. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are better together.
And we are better
undisrupted.